There's some things that I want to talk to you about from this text that we just read. And here they are. They're getting ready. They need a great victory, and they're honestly at the end of the ropes, and they begin to call out to God, and God shows up and he answers, and he says this. He says in 2 Kings 3:16, and he said, "Thus says the Lord, make this dry bed full of trenches." And I'll just let you know the first thing about faith is faith requires preparation. Like, God, I need you to do a miracle, and God says, I'm going to need you to do some digging. We don't like that part. Like, I don't like that. God, I don't want to do that. And we ask God for miracles, and he often responds with instructions. Like, okay, this is what I want you to do. Peter is standing on a boat in the middle of a sea, and Jesus says, hey, step out onto the water. I'm not stepping into your boat. You're going to step out onto my water. Then you see all these things begin to happen, and Naaman was a man who needed to be healed of leprosy. And God gives him instructions. I want you to go dip in the water, Jordan, 7 times. And on the 7th time, you'll be healed. And Naaman had to make a decision that am I going to listen to the instructions or am I going to listen to what makes sense to me? Then you got God told Joshua, hey, I want you to march around the walls of Jericho for 6 days. And on the 7th day, I want you to do it 7 times. And honestly, that doesn't make sense. It gets your steps in. But it doesn't make sense. And on the 7th day, on the 7th time, I want you to lift up a shout, and I'm going to cause the walls to fall flat. And I want you to know that the walls fell flat that day. Why? Because they were willing to step out. That I'm not going to let the fear from my past control me. I'm not going to assume that God isn't able to make these walls fall flat. I'm going to step out in faith. And God, whatever it is that you're telling me to do, I'm going to do it. The Israelites are in a place, and they need to cross the Jordan. And God says this. I want you to step into the water. What? Like, have you ever had wet feet? It's not fun. I hate having my feet wet. But God says this, I want you to step into the water, and when you step into the water, then I'll cause the Jordan to part. It's when you step in but God, it would be so much easier if you just did it when I got close. Anybody real in here? God, it'd be so much easier if you just go ahead and do it about a mile out. Then that way I can see it standing up on both sides, and I can have a praise break right then and there. But God says this, no, I want you to step into the water. But we want God's miracles and dry feet. Well, God, I don't really want to do that. That's uncomfortable for me. God doesn't care about your comfort. God cares about your faith. That God, I'm willing to step in and I'm willing to do whatever it is that you asked me to do. God doesn't need us, but he partners with us. The truth is that when God called us to plant this church, to be truthful, I was very afraid. Because I had no idea. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't have friends here. I didn't have family here. But I knew that God had called us. And so we sought godly counsel. And we knew that this is what God had called us to do. But guess what? There came a time when I had to stop praying. Don't pray about it. Be about it. And I had to stop praying. And so I sold my house in Sulphur Springs, Texas. And I moved to Royce City, Texas, where I knew nobody. The person that sold us our house had another church that they went to. I was like, really, God? Couldn't you just give me one? Like, that'd be a great start, just one. But it started. And let me just say this. When it comes to faith, y'all were a dream in my heart before you were ever in the room. That before you ever walked onto this property, that I saw you. And that's faith. Am I patting myself on the back? No, I'm just telling you, this is the life that I live. And this is a life that God has called us to live. Your step of faith might not look like my step of faith, but it's still a step of faith. So we stepped out. Now then, look at what God has done. And then we turned around and God gave us some land in Sulphur Springs, Texas, and they had a building, and we were like, okay, well, God, are you calling us to launch another campus? And we had no business launching that campus. We were 4 years old, still setting up and tearing down in middle school or elementary school in Roy City. But God said this, hey, I want you to step out in faith. And so we launched Sulphur Springs campus. Now hundreds upon hundreds come every single week and encounter Jesus. But guess what? It started with us getting our feet wet and saying, God, if you tell us to do it. Now then we're building a building. And I'll just tell you that I didn't need something else to do. That thing is a pain in my butt. It's a headache. But the truth is that I'm not doing it for convenience. I'm not doing it for comfort. Come on, we as a church, we're not doing it for convenience or comfort, but we're doing it in faith, believing that thousands will encounter Jesus in that building, that addictions will be broken in that building, that marriages will be healed and restored in that building, that lives will be changed in that building, that people will be saved in that building. I'm believing, God, that your future children will give their lives to Jesus. It all started with a shovel. It all started with a step. God, I'm willing to dig and I'm willing to step because I have windshield faith. That I believe that I'm not going to live my life just talking about what was. I'm going to live my life looking forward to what will be.